Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I'm once again building another mask. I keep getting requests for more and more, and I just kind of like making masks. And I wanted to build one from a game that a lot of people have suggested I build stuff from, which is Ghost of Tsushima. I've never played the game before, but it looks pretty epic, and his masks look pretty epic also. So I thought I would make one of his masks, or at least a version of his mask in my style or whatever. So today, with my template, we are going to build a mask from Ghost of Tsushima out of EVA. Let's get to building. So for those of you who have never seen my template making process, here is one of the methods I commonly use, the good old foil and duct tape method. I usually leave these steps out of my videos to shorten them up, but figured it would help some of you new viewers. I bulk out shapes with aluminum foil, then I tape it to my mannequin head. He's a little bit smaller than my actual head size, so I have to bulk it out quite a bit more. Once I'm happy with the shape, I cover it with another layer of foil, then cover all of that with a layer of duct tape. Using my image references I found off a program I frequently use called Sketchfab, I draw the parts. The obvious marks are the basic outline of the mask. Dividing it into pieces takes a little bit of practice. I draw lines across high points where sharp angles meet. I only template out half of the mask because it's symmetrical, and I know that to get the other half I just have to flip the template over. I also make registration marks across all of the parts every inch or two to help me line the pieces back up when I'm assembling the parts together. Then once all that's marked out, I cut off the parts. I use a pattern notcher to punch out all those registration marks I was just talking about and trace my pattern onto some poster board, which is easier to lay flat and trace onto my foam later. This poster board gets taped to a sheet of copy paper, and then I scan it into the computer to share with you guys. It's also at this point that I decide on the thickness of foam I'm going to use for each part, the angles of the cuts, and I name the parts in relation to where it sits on the body or facial feature. Now I'm ready to trace my pattern onto my materials. I typically use 6mm EVA foam for my mask and helmet builds because it's thick enough to hold its shape and thin enough to easily curve where I need it. My templates always have a cover page that explains the markings you see on my parts. You notice I'm adding about 1/4 of an inch on the top of my jaw piece. It's because the cheek will overlay it just a little bit. Parts with an arm mean to get the left side, put it label side down and trace again. Time for assembly. I like to lay my parts out in the general orientation that they go together, cover the edges with contact cement, and then start tacking parts together. You can also see my template off to the side in relation to the part alignment. Those registration marks really help to keep it all even and line your parts back up where they should go. When it gets to this part of my videos, you can always hit the settings on your video playback speed to slow it down to make it easier for you to follow. I try not to move too fast, but if I left the speed as it normally is, my videos would be hours long. I generally assemble one side first, then the other, and join them in the middle, focusing on aligning the parts up as flush as I possibly can on the outside and work slowly. Once the contact cement touches itself, it doesn't want to let go. You're more likely to rip the foam than you are to rip the seam line. Even though a lot of my seams will be covered by overlays in most areas, I put a stone bit on my Dremel and smooth over all my edges. Here is the nose overlay, which I am using 4mm EVA for. I have contact cement on the edges and where the pieces will lay on top of each other to assemble. My cheek overlays are out of 2mm EVA. I make a right and a left of the whole piece, then I cut down the middle line and trace the top portion again. Then I stack these on the mask base. Adding layers on your build can give interest to a flat area, cover up seam lines that you don't want people to see, and make your build sturdier. The trim on my reference image is not very large, so I decided to use the smallest EVA dowels I had, which are 5mm I got from TNT Cosplay Supply online. I flattened a small portion of the dowel so that it would sit flat on my mask, and I super glue the trim work over mainly seam lines and edges. For the nostrils, I just cut off a little piece of 18mm EVA dowel and rounded over the back end of it. Then I flattened where it would lay onto the nose and super glued it into place. I'm assuming the one in-game is made of leather or some sturdy material and well worn. The reference model I had these little pock marks all over it, so I put a rounded bit on my wood burner, strapped a respirator on my face, and turned on my air ventilator to burn out the texture. Wear protective gear and work in a well-ventilated area while burning EVA. You don't want to breathe the fumes in. The teeth were fairly simple to piece together. I cut out the basic shape in 6mm foam and rounded over the edges of each tooth. Then it got super glued on the inside of the mask. He has a lot of mask options in the game to pick from. I may have to go buy this game to play and see all the cool designs they have. I'm kind of obsessed with Menpo style masks. Another step of my build that I usually skip is heat setting the foam. After all the work is done, right before painting, I blast the surface with a heat gun to seal up the foam and ready it for paint. I think I'm just gonna leave the base as 3 coats of black Plasti Dip. From what I can see in the images, the mask uses these metal prongs to hold the strapping to your face, so I reinforced the foam with small pieces of styrene where those prongs will sit. By drilling holes in there, then inserting the metal wire into the prongs, it'll hopefully reinforce the foam and keep it from ripping through. To make the fit perfect on my prongs, I carefully heat up the metal and push it onto the styrene. It will create a little channel to allow more surface area to contact for the glue up. Once through, I bend the prongs into place. The paint job is mostly black for this build with a few details of gold like his teeth and a couple of the small parts. I used some Plaid Effects acrylic paint for these. I painted the inside of the mask red, and then I thought about dirtying it up like I normally do, but ultimately went against it. My rope used for strapping, however, was way too bright, so I painted on some brown and black paint, dipped it into water, rubbed on some more paint by hand, and then let it dry. This will make the rope look aged. This is just some cheap braided nylon rope I bought in bulk at the home improvement store. I honestly have no idea how the strapping is supposed to be laid out for this. I just looked at a couple of Google images and kind of winged it. The main importance is to give ear loops off the metal prongs. Then they meet together and tie under the chin. It's actually kind of a cool design because you can adjust it to your comfort level once you've got it strapped on. And we are finished. Here is the end result. Overall, not too bad. There's a couple of things that I'd like to do a little better. The nostrils could be a little bit bigger, I think. Other than that, it's not too bad. I even went as far as to paint the inside of it a nice red color. I'm assuming that I did the loops right. I don't really know. Just kind of looked at some very fuzzy screenshots to try and figure it out. So I got it as best as I could, but overall not too bad. Definitely a cool samurai style Menpo kind of mask that you could alter and make it your own. Yeah. Maybe you will try and make one of these masks yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to make things old from new materials that look like the material you're supposed to be making them with. True. Maybe you'll get some.
Yay!
And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these. Tell them, much props. I'm assuming that these loops go around my ears like so. Peace out.